So in the last video, we took a look at how to make the ball move randomly around the screen. But now what we want to do is we want to be able to score a point every time that we catch it. Well, we don't have anything that tells us about our score. There's nothing that will give us a point. So we're actually going to have to create that. And we go into this data tab in order to create it. So that's going to be a new variable that we're going to use. And so we're going to click on this that says make a variable. And we're going to go ahead and just name this score. You can leave it set to all sprites and hit OK. And you'll see now that we have this scoreboard that's added up here. We also get these 4 new blocks that are added. Set score to 0, change score by 1, show variable score, hide variable score. And now what we can do is we can utilize these blocks to actually make it so that when we catch the ball, we're going to score a point. So let's look at how we can use those. We're again going to go into our control panel and choose an if-then statement. And we're going to go into our sensing, and inside of sensing we actually have a few blocks that will be helpful in this regard. Oops. We're going to choose the touching one, the one at the top, and we're going to say if touching, and we're going to make it so that if it's touching the sprite. Now again, the way that this is working is we have this sprite selected of the ball. And so what this is saying is if the ball is touching sprite 1, which is what we want to happen, that means that sprite 1 is our cat. If the ball is touching the cat, then what should happen? Well, what should happen is we score a point, right? So we can come over here and we can say change score by 1. When we do that, that should give us a point. So let's go ahead and try it and see if that works. So we come over, we can catch the ball, but as we do that, what do you notice is happening to the score? Is it just giving us 1 point? No, it's not. It's giving us many, many points. And so what we begin to realize is that this is still inside of this loop. And as it loops through, it's going through and it's turning, it's moving, and then it's checking to see if the ball is touching the sprite. If it is, it's giving us a point. But often it's moving through this loop so quickly, and it's going through and it's moving 10 steps while it's still touching the sprite, that we are getting 10, 15 points every time that we move close to the ball. Well, that's not what we want at all. We want, when we catch it, we want to score 1 point. And then something else will happen then as a result. So let's look at some ways that we can make that happen. So we can go into this looks one, and in there we have this option to hide. So what we can do is we can put that in place there, and it says if the ball is touching sprite 1, then what we want it to do is we want it to hide. The ball is going to go away. That way we're not going to be continuing to have it loop through and then continuing to get a bunch of points. It then will change the score by 1. It still will give us our point. And then let's actually add in this one as well, this wait 1 second. And so what that's going to do is it's going to hide. It's going to change our score. It's going to give us our point. We want it just to wait a second. We want the ball to kind of go away for a second. And then before it shows back up, we also then are going to have to make it show back up. So we're going to put this show. We actually want the show to not be inside of our if statement though. So it's not going to be a part of this. It's going to go through and it's going to look for all of this, and then after it looks for that, then at the bottom here it's going to show back up. So let's go ahead and try that again. So now if I go over and I catch it, the ball goes away. Once I catch it, it gives us our point, but it's not giving us 10, 15, 20 points. Seems to have worked pretty well. Although if you find the glitch, right now the glitch in the game is that if I catch it and it just stays right and I stay right where I am, the ball will show back up and I can just sit there and just basically camp in that spot. Well, nobody really likes campers and people that can just get points for not really doing anything. So we want to make that operate a little bit differently then as well. We want to make it that once we catch the ball is not going to just show back up in the same spot. We want to make it so that when we catch it, we don't know where it's going to show up. We want to, again, add randomness to our game and make it so that we don't know what's going to happen. We have to utilize some skill. So again, let's take a look and see how we can make that happen. So we're going to go into our control, and we're going to utilize this if, then, else. So just a little bit different than what we've seen before. We're going to add this block right underneath the wait 1 second. So it's an if statement inside of an if statement. Pretty crazy stuff, but it's okay. We can work through that and figure out what this means. And also, we want to look at what this if, then, else statement means. So it's a little bit, just a little bit more in addition to an if, then. Whereas with this one, we saw that, actually, let me go to this. In our first program that we did with our cat, we saw that if the distance from the cat to the mouse pointer was more than 5 steps away, then it went ahead and moved 10 steps. But when this was not true, when we stopped moving our mouse and the cat was no longer more than 5 steps away, then it just didn't do anything. However, in an if, then, else statement, there's always going to be something that happens. If the if is true, then it's going to do whatever is underneath here. If the if is not true, then it's going to do the else. There's no exception. It has to do something. So it's either going to do the then because the if is true, or it's going to do the else because the if is false. So this is we're beginning to introduce some logic. And so the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go into our operators, and we're going to put in this equal sign. Now, stick with me for a minute. I know that this might get a little bit confusing, and this might be something that you'd say, wow, I would never think of that on my own. I mean, I don't even, I'm still trying to figure this out, and that's okay. Some of the things that we're showing, we just want to show how it could work. You may or may not have been able to figure it out on your own. That's okay. But if you begin to understand the concepts, then I think that will be really helpful then as well. So we're going to come in here. We're going to use this equals sign. And we're again going to say pick a random number. But this time we're going to just say pick a random number from 1 to 2. And we're going to set it equal to 1. Now, what that's going to do then is the computer's going to always pick a random number. It's either going to pick 1 or it's going to pick 2. And we set it equal to 1. So basically then if it picks 1, 1 equals 1. That means the if is true. And so it's going to run the then. If the computer picks a 2 then, that means that the if is false. So it's going to go down and it's going to run the else. So this is just a way to make it so that we have a random event happen, and it's going to either be one of two things. But we don't know which one it's going to be. And again, in a game, that's what we want. Is we want to create randomness and make it so that we don't know what's going to happen. So we have the goal with this then is that it's going to make it so that once we catch the ball is going to show up in a new location, and we don't know where that location is. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go into my motion, and I'm going to choose this go to. And I'm going to come over, and I'm going to say that if it picks a 1, that's going to make it do the then. I'm going to come over, and I'm going to say that it should come in on the left-hand side. It should come over here from this side over here. Well, I can see that that is x is negative 240. I can also then make it so that it can come in anywhere along this left-hand side from the top to bottom. And I can do that by going in and saying pick a random number for y and make it between negative 180 to 180. Now then, that means that if it picks a 1, the ball is going to come over here to the left-hand side, and then the computer is going to pick another random number between negative 180 and 180, and it's going to come in anywhere along this line right here. If the computer picks a 2, I want it to show up over here on the right-hand side. So I don't have to necessarily go and recreate this whole block again. I can just actually do a 2-finger click on it, and I have this option then to say duplicate. Since basically the only thing I'm going to change is that instead of it being negative 240, it's going to be positive 240. That way then I don't have to go and find this whole block. It just does it pretty simply and easily for us. So let's go ahead and see what happens now when I do that. I catch the ball waits a second, and then it goes to either side. Sometimes from the left, sometimes from the right, and anywhere along that side, top to bottom. So again, made another little improvement to the game and continued to add a little bit more to it. Now let's add one more thing as well, because this, again, it's getting there. It's getting to be a somewhat decent game, but it's pretty easy. So I want to make it just a little bit more challenging by adding another sprite. And this time I'm going to add a sprite that we don't want to catch, that we want to avoid. So I'm going to just choose this beach ball. It's got these spots. Maybe it looks like it's got some disease or something, and I want to avoid that. I don't want to catch that one. Again, when I put my new sprite in, it takes away this whole program. I don't have anything there, and I think, oh no, I'm going to have to do a bunch of work. But what I can do, because essentially I want this beach ball to move in very much the same way as this one. I want it to move randomly around, but I don't want to have to go in and recreate this whole program. So what I can do is I can click on the top where it says when green flag is clicked, and I can just drag that down here to beach ball. Drop it on there. Looks like nothing happened because it just kind of clicked back into place. But when I click on beach ball, I now see that I have this whole program inside of the beach ball now as well. Now, what's the one thing that I'm going to have to change if I don't want to catch this one? Well, I'm going to have to change the score. If I catch this one, I want to actually lose a point. So I'm going to come in here to change score, and I'm going to make it say by -1. That way, if I catch that one, I'm actually going to lose a point. So again, let's try it, and let's see if it works. So if I go and catch that one, then my score actually goes down, and I'm losing points for catching that. All right, so we're on the track to making a pretty good game. So we're going to stop there for a minute, and we'll come back in the next video and show you a couple more things that we want to continue working on.